Illinois at Nebraska. This is the Friday night game, top 25 matchup. It's got the makings for a Big Ten slobber knocker, in my opinion. We've seen Nebraska so far make leaps in the past couple of years, really, but this year in particular, with Dylan Raiola coming in as a true freshman quarterback, he's been better than anybody could expect for a true freshman to come in and play and lead this offense. On the flip side, you've got Luke Altmaier, who's playing his best ball, hasn't thrown an interception yet this season, and really, I think when you compare these two programs, they're built pretty similar. I think for a casual fan looking at this game, you're probably thinking Nebraska could really run away with this one, but let's get into it. I don't know if the numbers necessarily lead us to think that. All right, so looking at the breakdown here, mention let's start on the Illinois side of the football. Some key players here. Luke Altmaier, 69.2%. I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at as a quarterback. 647 yards, 6 touchdowns. As I said, no interceptions. That's pretty impressive. Running back Caden Fagan played really well in his last game, but 173 yards, 3 touchdowns, averaging over 4 yards per carry. That is getting it done for sure as a running back. And then you've got your 2 wide receivers. Pat Bryant's the leader of this offense for the most part. He's played pretty well. 235 yards, 4 touchdowns, averaging over 15 yards per catch. Excellent, right? A plus right there. And then Zachary Franklin, not sure how to pronounce that, but 173 yards for him. No touchdowns yet, but he's got big play potential. He'll find the end zone soon, I'm sure. Then you look at the Scott brothers, right? I know they're not actually brothers, but Miles Scott and Xavier Scott on the defensive side of the football playing really, really well. Miles Scott has 17 tackles already. I believe that leads the team, if I'm not mistaken, and 2 pass breakups, playing excellent as a DB. And then Xavier Scott, 12 tackles, a forced fumble, had 2 picks a couple weeks ago against Kansas. Including a pick 6. I mean, the guy's been playing phenomenal. And then on the defensive line, Terah Edwards, 6 tackles, 3 quarterback hurries. This guy kind of adds a little bit of a different dynamic to the defense for Illinois. That's been great for seasons past. I think last year was a little bit of a lull for the defense for Illinois. They're making steps in the right direction so far this season, and I think they got their work cut out for them when it comes to Nebraska this week. Playing in Nebraska, playing in Lincoln, they're going to have their work cut out for them. For Nebraska on the offensive side of the football, I mentioned it, quarterback Dylan Raiola playing well beyond his years, looking great. Threw his first pick last week, but that's to be expected. He made a little bit of a freshman mistake. No big deal. Shake it off. You're doing fine. 73.8%. 670 yards through the year, 5 touchdowns, just the 1 pick. What more can you say about the guy? I mean, he's poised. He looks like a leader out there on the offensive side of the football for the whole team in general. I mean, he's playing like a leader, and that's been very impressive. I think I don't know that I've been as impressed with a true freshman quarterback in a couple of years. He's well ahead of schedule, I guess, even as a 5-star coming in. I think he has exceeded expectations by far. The running backs, Dante Dowdle, 184 yards, 3 touchdowns, averaging almost 6 yards per carry. That's awesome. Emmett Johnson, he's been a little bit more of an efficient back, averaging 9.5 yards so far, 124 yards total with 1 touchdown. I think that you could see him start to get a little bit more involved as the season goes on. You try to mitigate the workload a little bit for these running backs in particular, but the whole team. You want to limit the impact that these running backs are taking. And Emmett Johnson gives you a great second option at the running back position. The leader in the wide receiver room so far this year has been Isaiah Nayor, 187 yards, 2 touchdowns, over 15 yards per catch. Big play potential written all over him. And it seems like him and Dylan Raiola really have a connection already. established this early in the season. That's a really good indication for future success. On the defensive side of the football, not a guy that's really going to light up the stat sheet, but MJ Sherman has been very disruptive at the linebacker position. He's got only 4 tackles on the year, but 1 tackle for a loss and 4 quarterback hurries. That's one of the best in the country so far through 3 games to have 4 quarterback hurries. That's excellent, especially out of the linebacker position. He's really shaping into form. This is a former 5-star guy, a Georgia transfer, and he's playing really good football so far this year. And then at DB, Isaac Gifford leads the team in tackles with 17. He's also found himself in the backfield a couple times and got 1.5 tackles for a loss. And then the big boy, Nash Hutchmaker, I think they call him the polar bear, 6 tackles, 1 tackle for a loss. Hasn't really lit up the stat sheet yet, but we know that he can be very disruptive in the middle of this defensive line. He is going to be a playmaker. He's probably getting a lot of double teams and things like that, so that can definitely affect the stat sheet. But nonetheless, he is definitely one of the key players to this entire football team, and especially for this defense. All right, some keys to victory. So for Illinois, pass protection equals pass success. And what I mean by that, when you look at what Illinois has done so far this season, they've given up 22 tackles for a loss so far this season. That's good for 29th in the country. And Nebraska has 22 tackles for a loss, which is 25th in the country on the defensive side of the football. So you really have good on good here. And we've seen Luke Altmaier so far this season really be able to take advantage of the defense when he's given the time. Look, Bryant and Franklin at wide receiver, they're pretty dang good wide receivers. And if you give Luke Altmaier time to find them, he's going to have success. It's a big ask for this offensive line, but I think that they match up pretty well against Nebraska's pass rush. I think that they will be able to hold up a pretty good bit. Create more turnovers for Illinois. If you're an Illinois fan, this isn't a stat that you're unfamiliar with, but they're second in the country so far in turnover margin at +8. They've been phenomenal at getting these interceptions, getting the fumbles forced and turnovers. It's been a big key to their success, particularly in that Kansas game. I mean, had they not had the turnovers that they had, I think they had 3 in that game, they probably don't win that football game. So it's a big part of their success so far. Got to keep that up. Got to keep that up and at least match what Nebraska does in the turnover margin in this football game to be successful. You are overmatched in this football game. There's just no way around it. When you look at just roster to roster, Illinois' got a lesser roster than Nebraska. That can't be understated in this football game. You got to find ways to limit possessions, turn the ball over, give it back to your offense, keep them on the field, extend drives, keep that pretty dominant Nebraska offense off the field as much as possible. Obviously, turnovers are the best way to do that. And then continued red zone success. So far this year, Illinois has scored 100% of the time that they've been in the red zone. Of course, that's first in the country, right? You can't be better than 100%. There are a lot of teams at 100%. But I think another interesting point is that they've converted 66.67% of those into touchdowns. That's a pretty good rate there when you're getting 7 points instead of 3. They've got to continue to have that success. And then on the flip side, and we'll kind of start to get into the keys to success here for Nebraska. Nebraska is 13th in the country in defending in the red zone. Opponents have scored on 60% of their red zone trips against Nebraska. That is elite. That is really tough to do for a defense to limit even a field goal at 60%. That's really good. And then when it comes to touchdowns, they've only given up 20% in the red zone. Very elite from this Nebraska defense in the red zone. Protect the football. I think that goes without saying, right? But when you look at what Illinois has been able to do in creating turnovers, I think that it's fair to say that a key to victory for Nebraska is to limit the turnovers, because if you're turning the ball over and with a freshman at quarterback, it's bound to happen in one of these games If this is the game where you're turning the ball over a ton, Illinois will absolutely make you pay for it. So protect the football, keep it off the ground, keep it out of the opponent's hands, and I think without a turnover in this game for Illinois, I think Nebraska wins the game. I think that's kind of like just one of those padlock stats for this football game. And then for Nebraska as well, get to the quarterback. They've already got 9 sacks this season. That's really good for Nebraska. Can they get past the offensive line of Illinois? Britt Bielema, he hangs himself or hangs his hat, not hangs himself. He hangs his hat on this offensive line, being a former offensive lineman himself. And he's going to have these guys coached up. He definitely will. So can you continue the pass rush success? I think that they do. Look, the spread's at 8.5 points in Nebraska's favor. The game is played in Lincoln. I don't see any way that Nebraska doesn't win this football game by at least 10 points unless Illinois continues getting the turnovers like they have so far this year. I think that this is kind of a come to earth moment for Illinois. I don't think that that's sustainable, and that kind of goes without saying. But if like I said, if Nebraska is able to limit the turnovers, they win this game. I think that they can win this game by 14 points, maybe even 20 points. But yeah, give me Nebraska in this football game. I like them to win pretty big, two scores, I think at least. But overall, I do think that Illinois is a good football team, and this will be a huge win for Nebraska if they're able to get it done at home this week.